As we welcome you to Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizers. Still going. We got the final 1 through 32 ranking today, as we will transition into the playoff Power Rankings, the moment the old Washington football team and Eagles and their encounter. Glad to have the author of Power Rankings with us, the old Zeuser, especially considering he's been picked to depress the Times Square plunger on New Year's Eve, thanks to his close personal relationship with Kathy Griffin. So congratulations on that, Dan.
You know, Kathy and I, there's just a kinship there that it's hard to explain to the layman.
I'm glad I could share that with everybody that was watching, Dan. I appreciate you sharing that little nugget with me, too, by the way. All right, let's get to it. Numbers 1 through 8. As you see them here, the Kansas City Chiefs are atop the list. Right below them, the Bills. Packers is the top team in the NFC. And Dan, what do you say we get it started by talking about that gap based on what we saw in Week 16 and kind of what you think about the Chiefs versus the Bills and maybe how close that gap is going into the final week of the regular season?
Yeah, you look at where the Chiefs are. They barely eke out a win over the Falcons. And then the rest of the top 5 all romp in convincing wins, and it does feel like that gap is closing, but it's closer. It's never closer than it is between the Bills and the Chiefs right now. And you know, if you look at what happened against the Falcons, if AJ Terrell comes down with that interception, if Younghoe Koo makes that kick, and maybe the Falcons steal that game, I think I would have had the Bills at number 1 in the power rankings. They're just at that level right now, Buffalo. Whereas the Chiefs, I don't know where the Chiefs are. I think they're kind of just going through the motions a little bit here.
So here's I think going through the motions is one way to put it. And I think another way is it a team that's just waiting for the playoffs to start, right? And is that what we're seeing? A team that, and it's not fair. I don't think it's fair to the Chiefs to say, oh, it's a team that's not taking the regular season seriously enough. By the way, I finally got you and beat you to the sunglass removal. Is it a team that's just, they won the Super Bowl. They've just made a mockery to some degree. And again, a lot of it's been late game comebacks, but it just seems like when they need to win a game, they win a game. And you wonder if they're just waiting for this postseason to start. And I tend to fall into that category. And when I look at the Bills, I look back at the meeting. Look, we have at least, 60 minutes worth of football to look at when it comes to these two teams and how they fared when they took one another on. And you see it there. It was a 9-point win, but it was interesting. You see them right here, right? They're rushing 4, and they basically played cover 4, cover 2 the whole time. It's what I see the Chargers do against them every game and just try to keep everything in front of you, prevent those explosive plays. Well, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy and that offense, what they do? You see it right here. They rushed for 250 yards. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 161 on the ground. They dominated time of possession, and they took what the defense gave them. So it's a team that to me was like peak Chiefs, right? You want to take away the explosive plays? Well, watch what we're going to do now with this new weapon we have in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If you want to prevent that running game from happening, then guess what? We're going to blow you up in 3 plays with Tyreek Hill and the rest of the weapons. So I do still feel like, you know what? I'm not quite believing in that gap. The one wild card, of course, is just Josh Allen and how well he has played and how hard it is to try to game plan and slow him down.
Yeah, that version of Josh Allen in Week 6 is not the version that we're seeing now. This guy is playing out of his mind. And it's funny, the Chiefs and Bills offenses are interesting to me because sometimes there's hand-wringing. I know you mentioned that Clyde Edwards-Helaire game where he went off. But there's sometimes hand-wringing like, oh, the Chiefs, can they get their running game going? And then sometimes you'll hear that about the Bills. But no, you don't need to establish a running game when you have someone as special as Josh Allen and someone as special as Patrick Mahomes. And my last thought is this, Money. Everyone's trying to figure out Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers for MVP. Josh Allen, I think, deserves to be seriously considered in that race as well for how he's closing this year.
100%. 100%. Now, look. Things can change quickly, and obviously they have for the Bills as we now segue into your number 17, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and kind of how things have changed for them. And look, it was one of your biggest movers, right? They're up 4 spots, so clearly you took something away from that second half that maybe I didn't, and what you saw, and them, rallying and looking like a Steelers team in that second half that we had seen for much of that 11-game win streak to start the season.
Yeah, I don't know how you can't take something out of what happened in the second half there, because this wasn't against the Jaguars. This was against a really balanced, solid Colts team playing with a ton of confidence and smelling a playoff spot being clinched. And somehow, some way, and it's one of the more stunning turnarounds, in-game turnarounds I can remember. It went from the Steelers appearing to be just dead in the water and broken at halftime to that Deontay Johnson touchdown from Big Ben, and then they just came to life. And they didn't just come to life on offense, they came to life on defense as well. And all of a sudden, the Pittsburgh Steelers, a version of the team we thought was gone, was back in the final two quarters. Now, I temper that money with what's happening now. In Week 17, we don't know, with the Cleveland Browns coming up on the schedule and the Steelers more or less locked in place, if we're going to get the Steelers playing 4 more quarters with their starters. I kind of would like to see them build off the momentum of that second half rather than go back into hibernation until January.
Well, I kind of agree with the move to rest guys for 2 reasons, right? One, Cleveland wins, Cleveland's in. Colts are out. You just saw what the Colts were able to do to you over the course of a half. Now, granted, they were able to overcome that, but I think a lot of that was just sort of weird plays, and I don't know, how weird is the Phillip Rivers interception, right? But just, to me, they're a much more complete team, the Colts are. And number 2, we know what AFC North games look like, right? These guys are beat to heck, man. It's a gnarly division to play in. It's a physical division. You take a lot of punishment. So there's never really a right answer, right? Unless you go on to win the Super Bowl, because, you were rusty and you came out rusty, or you weren't ready, for the punishment. Or if you get the rest and you make that run, it's like, yeah, see, give your guys a chance to recoup and reset for the postseason and worry about the tournament, not Week 17, and trying to, make an impact on who gets in and who doesn't. So for me, I think what I'm getting at is I agree. I do think I would rest everyone for 2 reasons. 1, get them healthy, and 2, I think I'd rather, the way this thing lines up, I think I would rather face the Browns in the wild card round than I would the Indianapolis Colts if I were the Steelers. And that brings us to the NFC and the Bucs. And boy, talk about a team that is sending a message right at the end of the season here.
Yeah, Tom Brady, when you factor in the final 2 quarters of Week 15 and then the half that he had against the Lions in Week 16. I mean, it is as best as we've ever seen him. And this is Tom Brady, the GOAT we're talking about. And I guess that is what happens when you protect the old man and you just let him pick a defense apart. That's what happened here. And I just think the Bucs are a team that you don't want to see in the playoffs right now, because they went through their funk and they've been a hard team to trust at times. But when they are in their top gear and they're playing with confidence and the offense is doing their thing, I think they could beat anybody in the NFC. And the AFC to me is more and more looking like Bills, Chiefs, and watch out for the Ravens. That's where I think when you talk about who's going to the Super Bowl, when it comes to the NFC, I can make a case for 5 teams, and I think the Bucs are one of them.
Yeah, I think, selfishly, what I would like to see is, look, the Bucs are going to be the number 1 wild card team, right? So what I'd like to see is, and this is, preview of what's to come a little later in the show, and me perhaps just talking out of both sides of my mouth here. I'd like to see him play the Washington football team in the first round. Tom Brady has been exceptional when the pocket's been clean, and he has lit teams up. When it gets a little muddy and things start, bullets start flying back there, it's not been good. I mean, we have talked about Tom Brady on both ends of the spectrum all season long. Think about coming out of that game, that Monday nighter against the Rams, and the interceptions and under duress with Aaron Donald in his lap. And then think about what the Washington football team does with that front 4 and how well Chase Young is playing right now and all the talent they have. I just think it's been 2 totally different quarterbacks, and what we saw this past week was him with time to throw, with no pressure. And I think it'd be awfully fun. That would be a really fun matchup to see how he could overcome one of the best front 7s in the game.
Yeah, I agree with you that would be a tough matchup for them. But on the flip side, the Tampa Bay defense, I don't think they would have much problem with the Washington offense, no matter who's the quarterback there. That game has like 17-14 written all over it, and the Bucs just trying to survive.
All right, there it is, first quadrant, the top 8. And when we return, we got 2 spots for 3 teams. Which squads will be stuck standing when the music stops on January 3rd? Could it be the Colts? What about the reeling Rams? We focus on final week failures next. And we welcome you back to Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. Still going. Here we go. Numbers 9 through 16. As you see in there, Titans, Colts. One of those teams is going to emerge from Week 17 as the champ of the AFC South. The Dolphins are currently in the 5-hole. They could end up out of the playoffs altogether. The Rams and Cardinals have a head-to-head matchup that will determine whether or not both get in. Only one get in, and that goes for the Bears as well. But let's kind of focus on disappointment, Dan, from Week 16 and what has set us up for an eventful Week 17. And we start with the Titans. On national TV, the snow was on the ground. Lambeau was looking as magical as ever, and the Titans just did not get anything going in that contest.
Yeah, I was surprised when Chris Collinsworth on the NBC telecast said that he got the vibe that the Titans were maybe not ready for that type of environment. I don't buy that. I think the problem for the Tennessee Titans is the problem that we've seen all season. When they have to go toe-to-toe with a top team that has a good offense, they get lit up, and it happened again. And yes, the offense for Tennessee wasn't as good as it usually is either, so you could just chalk it up as a bad night all around. But it's that defense that is way on my radar, and if they can get to the playoffs, and I think they will, I still think it is going to be the defense that dooms them at some point. It's just the Achilles heel that can't be fixed until the offseason.
Yeah, I would add to that, Dan, if it is as severe an Achilles heel, since we're talking about the classics here, as I think both of us believe, it could doom them this week. You know, you've got a quarterback in Deshaun Watson that is playing as good as any quarterback in the league, that has kept his Houston Texans team in games, that has played at a Pro Bowl level, and it's a division game. And we know division games are crazy, you know, and just it's harder to beat an opponent twice in a year. It's harder to beat a team in your division because they know so much about you. There is some continuity there. It's you know, one of the rare occurrences that you really can use historical data to try to predict what's going to happen. And if you can't get to Deshaun Watson, he'll cut you apart. You know, the guy will hold on to it. He'll use his legs. He'll spread it around. We've seen it repeatedly. I would be legitimately worried about this Week 17 game just based on the matchup and how good, you know, Watson's been. And then you flip to the Colts that are right behind him, Dan, and they get a matchup against the Jags, the team that beat them in Week 1, and ultimately may prevent them from getting in the playoffs if they finish 11-5.
Yeah, and the Colts, that's just a killer. By the way, did you know, Money, that you'll be at slot corner and I'll be at strong safety for the Texans this week? They just put in the call.
Yeah.
So I think the Titans are going to score a lot of points there. The Colts, that's just such a killer loss because you had everything in front of you. You're playing with confidence on both sides of the ball, and you have the playoffs clinch right there, and you just let it slip away. And I think it exposed a little bit with Indianapolis, something that I thought, and I really respect this team. They have balance, great coaching. Phil Rivers was a really solid signing that proved me wrong. But when these other teams in the AFC hit their top gear, I don't think the Colts are quite there. So the Steelers woke up, and when they did, the Colts just didn't have that extra year to get even with them. And I think that's what holds them back. They're a really good team, but I just don't think they're great.
Yeah, it goes back to, just when Phillip Rivers has a clean pocket, he's great. When he doesn't, it gets sideways. And that was the difference in the two halves. He was able to operate pretty clean in that first half. He was not in the second half, and it got away from him. And now we go to the third team, and that's the Rams. They don't score a touchdown against the Seattle Seahawks. They lose to the Jets as they just have a snooze fest, in a game where Frank Gore was trying and Adam Gase were trying to give them that win, rushing for 2.5 yards per carry for about 40 times in the game. And they didn't take it. And now they're going to be without Jared Goff, which for me, and look, maybe this is the tiny bit of bias, and the only positive thing that could have come from me calling all those AAF games that I'm still waiting to get paid for. But that's an opportunity to see John Wolford. And here's what I'll tell you. He's athletic. You see him on the move here. I think Sean McVay is, and this isn't a hot take. He's one of, if not the best offensive play caller in the league. He's great at calling offense. And they are going to dial up RPOs to the nines. That's what Rick Neuheisel and they did with Hugh Freeze's offense in the AAF for the hot shots. And he was one of the more effective, if not the best quarterback in the alliance. He can use his legs. He throws an accurate ball. Here's what's holding Wolford back. He's small. That's the only reason why he's not on an NFL roster. The guy's maybe all of 200 pounds and 6'1", but as far as skill set goes, this is what you would look for in a backup. Can you give me a quarter? Can you give me a half? Can you give me a game? And I think that pairing with McVay, combined with arguably the most dominant defense in the league for most of the season, I think that can lead to a win in Arizona. It won't surprise me at all.
Well, let me start by saying I would say your work with the Alliance of American Football is only bested by your guest spot on Nathan For You, and when you talk about my favorite Matt Money Smith side gigs. But you're getting sucked in here, Money, because John Wolford, I know nothing about him, okay? But usually there's a reason why these guys float around in these lower level leagues and don't play in the NFL. It's because they don't have the goods. So even though you have your eyes on it, I think it's probably not a good situation here that the Rams are going to have a guy with 0 career NFL snaps on the field, a guy that was a star for the Hot Shots, I believe. I'm trying not to be judgmental, but there is also this
I am, though. But you're being judgmental.
But there is this Jared Goff thing that people are so annoyed watching Jared Goff, and you count as one of those people that 100%. You're almost like, oh, this is actually a blessing in disguise. Well, let's see what happens when John Wolford's facing a pass rush from Hassan Reddick on Sunday.
Here's all I would push back on that, Dan, is that the defense has been able to overcome Jared Goff, 4 wins this season. Like it's not that I think Jared's, so much work, that the gap between he and Wolford is that tight. I just think the defense is so good. They've been able to overcome his ineptitude repeatedly. And I think they'll put together a game plan where the defense will shine. They'll try to protect that ball, put Wolford, McVay will dial up a few of those McVay specials. That should be enough to get them over the hump, especially without 100%, or if at all, Kyler Murray. Up next, win, and they're in. The Washington football team need only beat the Eagles to capture the NFC East. Our Mike Garafolo gets after it with a deluge of distractions in the district, heading into Week 17.
Jones back. Three runners at Jones. He's going to get sacked again.
Never had a chance, Bob. Never had a chance.
The Giants are going to lose for the 10th time.
Dwayne Haskins' day looks to be over as Taylor Heineke steps in and takes over on offense.
If Alex Smith cannot play next week, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback.
And it is caught. Deshaun Jackson, 81 yards.
That's what he can do.
Throws it down the right side, over the top for Lamb at the 30. On the run to the end zone. The Dallas Cowboys are going to have the biggest win of the Mike McCarthy first campaign.
No, our focus is on getting ready for the Cowboys.
Well, we still control our destiny. I mean, that's the truth of the matter.
Well, now we have a chance next week.
Back here on Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. Here's our numbers, 17 through 24 per the old Zeuser, Dan Hanzus, available at NFL.com/power rankings. You can scan the QR code right there to get to his full article. And time now, Dan, to get a look at number 17 there with an explorer of the Atlantic 10, offering up insightful commentary with just the right amount of levity. It is Mike Garafolo on Power Rankings, helping us negotiate news from the NFC East. Thanks, Mike. And before we get to the whole Haskins getting the old heap-ho, do you know what we're looking at for Sunday? Is it Alex Smith? Is it Taylor Heineke against Philly?
I sound like a broken record, Money, but I'm going to say that the Washington football team is cautiously optimistic that Alex Smith will be able to play on Sunday. And the reason I say that is I said the same stuff last week, and they were at one point cautiously optimistic that he was going to play. And then on Saturday, he showed up after having a full practice on Friday, and the calf wasn't right. He was sore. So they said, all right, let's back it down and go with Dwayne Haskins here rather than risk it for a guy that has had a major leg injury in the past. Now, I will say the last 2 weeks, it sounded to me, nobody really said this because they wouldn't say it to me, but it sounded to me like they thought, well, we've got ourselves a bit of a cushion here, right? So we can afford to go with Dwayne Haskins, let Alex rest. If it doesn't work out, then at least we can come back next week and Alex can win a game for us. They had that cushion the last 2 weeks. The Giants kept losing, so really didn't hurt them in that regard. Well, now you're backed up to the point where you've got to start Alex Smith right now if you really want to win this game on Sunday. That is the smart and prudent move. So I would expect with all of my heart Alex Smith on the field on Sunday.
And it's pretty remarkable to think that Dwayne Haskins is completely out of the picture in this scenario. And I know when Haskins came into the building, we were told or we had heard that Daniel Snyder, the owner, was a big fan and Haskins was a local kid. How much do you think Ron Rivera had to lobby to make this move, which was a bold move, dropping a first-round pick in his second season?
Didn't sound like a lot. It just sounded like it got to the point where everybody understood his time was done. And that's the one thing that I think that this coaching staff was doing was from day one trying to make it clear both to Dwayne Haskins and to Dan Snyder and everybody in that building that Haskins had to show them that he was capable and willing to do the things that he needed to do to be successful. When Ron Rivera first showed up, I remember talking to him at the scouting combine with the reporters there, and he kept saying that when I go to the locker room, I see Dwayne in there. When I go to the weight room, I see Dwayne in there. I like that he's there and showing people that he's in the building doing what he needs to do. And I remember thinking that was half a compliment, half a message to Haskins, basically saying, we're watching you. We know what we heard last year, all the things about maybe you weren't putting in the work that you need to put in. And so you better continue to do that because that's what we expect from our players, particularly our franchise quarterback. So immediately I knew this guy's going to be on thin ice, and then got the quick hook early in the season after a statistically good game for him, got the hook because he wasn't making the proper decision. So I think that this coaching staff made it clear to Dan Snyder by giving Haskins another opportunity, 2 chances, to really prove that he had learned his lesson from the early season benching. Didn't, and so therefore the move was made quickly. And I think the whole Sunday thing, him not talking to the media, I know they talked about it, a miscommunication. Yeah. I truly believe, based on the conversations that I had, that played into it big time as well. That was, not only didn't you play well, you didn't stand up to the media and answer the questions afterward. And I don't know at what point Dan Snyder bought in, but after that, there was not a lot of pushing and pulling. He was on board, and the move was made.
with the, and you said you believe that Alex will play on Sunday, but it's just an interesting time to make the move. In terms of a playoff berth is on the line. You've got someone who, had to ask his professors to cut him some slack on his finals, and Taylor Heineke, in order to get on the football team and perhaps get this start this week. What message are they sending? Like, what was the idea behind, hey, we're going to do this right now because that's what this is to me. It's a message as opposed to a transaction.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's more everybody kind of understood. That's it. Like, he's not going to be around after the season. And at this point, Taylor Heineke played better on Sunday because he was making the proper decision. See, this moment here, a couple of weeks ago, Alex Smith gets knocked down and Dwayne Haskins runs up to him and picks him up on the sideline. I think it was the Thanksgiving game maybe. And a bunch of fans put it out on Twitter and said, see, there's Dwayne, there's him. A lot of it was for show, right? And him walking out there, and I'm going to, encourage Taylor Heineke, even though I've already been pulled from the game. That's fine. Like, all that's well and good, but it really didn't follow all the way through. And frankly, all of that stuff doesn't matter if you're going on the field on Sunday and they're asking you to do what you need to do and you're not making the right decisions. I talked to sources earlier this year about why Haskins was pulled, and I gathered that players and coaches were upset because all week long they would talk about something, like a situational thing, and say, all right, we're going to do this in this situation. And then the situation would come up, and he would do the complete opposite. And not only that, it's okay to do that if you're, Brett Favre and all of a sudden you're making a play out of it. But he would do that and then would make a mistake. And so Taylor Heineke comes in, not having had a whole lot of experience there, but obviously experience with the coaching staff before, and starts to make the right decisions. And all of a sudden the offense is running better. Dwayne Haskins, no doubt, was more talented, but Taylor Heineke was doing what was being asked. So if the message is anything, it's that we don't care where you were drafted. We don't care what your ceiling is. Just come in and do the things that we ask you to do so we can run our offense and run our team the way that we want to run it.
And, Mike, Washington is the great front seven and all this drama around them, and maybe Alex Smith behind center. The Cowboys have surged back to life on offense. When the dust clears on Sunday in the NFC East, the Giants are going to end up winning, right? That's the only thing that makes sense in this ridiculous year.
That would make sense, yeah. And it's amazing that 3 out of the 4 teams are alive at this point, but that's what poor play over the course of a season. And Rivera, give him credit, because one of the things that he said on Monday was, hey, we got to get back to having fun because we're not supposed to be in this situation anyway. This is house money. If they came in and finished the season 6-10, 7-9, right around there, and they didn't win the division, and somebody won it at 9-7 or 10-6, you'd say, okay, that's about what we expected from the Washington football team in Ron Rivera's first year. Well, it just so happens that now they're in contention. So I thought that was smart of him to rid themselves of the Haskins drama and anything that would come with it, and go back to, hey, look at this. If I told you in Week 17 we were going to have a chance to win the division, you'd be pretty happy with that, right? So let's get back to that, and let's realize we've got an opportunity here. I think they win this game on Sunday, and they put the rest of the division out of their misery. But we shall see. I mean, I know the Eagles would love to play spoiler in this one.
Well, you can follow him on Twitter at Mike Garafolo. Great insight on the Washington football team and the NFC East as a whole. We appreciate it, Mike. And for us here, Dan, that is the ghost of NFC East present. How about we get a look at the ghost of NFC East past?
Ooh, let's do it.
Who is your pick? Which team would be your selection to emerge victorious with the NFC East crown?
I mean, I would be really bad at power rankings if I didn't have the Eagles as my pick.
That's true. I told our producers that I'm taking the Giants here.
Showing his legs, showing his speed, and Jones into the end zone for the touchdown.
I'm all in on the Cowboys now. Got to win on Thursday, though. You're going to make me look super dumb.
Well, there you go. I'm going to make you look super dumb because I'm going to take the other sideline.
Right up the gut. That is Gibson, and he is gone.
I'm going to go ahead and take your lead here, Dan, and I'm going to take the Giants.
Wayne Gallman, big hole, there he goes. Biggest play of the day for the Giants offense.
You're picking the wrong time to bail on Washington.
Here's Roethlisberger coming near side, tipped in the air, and it's intercepted by Washington.
Have you moved your position this week, Dan, from the Washington football team?
How about we have some integrity here and go with what we actually believe? I believe the Washington football team.
Haskins steps up. Haskins didn't see the defender behind him, and Carolina corrals him.
there's something missing from that. There's something missing from that little vignette. And that was the team that I selected for this week. And once again, I am prophetic. Who do you think? Go ahead, Dan. Start us off. Who do you got to win the NFC East in Week 17? I'll get to mine in a minute.
Yeah, I'm not bailing on Washington. Dwayne Haskins is off the team now. That helps. There's no shenanigans around him, and I'm gonna get behind this front seven, finding a way to get the job done, and hopefully Alex Smith is the quarterback of this team, and he brings some professionalism back to the signal caller position. But even if it's Taylor Heineke, if you got to pick one team, go with the team that has the strongest skill set. That is the front seven of Washington. Bring it home, boys.
Yeah, that's right. I picked the Cowboys last week is what I did, Dan, and I told you the Panthers were going to knock off the football team and knock them out of the playoffs, and all the Cowboys have done is won 3 in a row, while the rest of the division combined has lost 7 in a row. The Cowboys beat a Bengals team that's won 2 in a row. They beat a 49ers team that just knocked off the Cardinals and a surging Eagles team that was riding some momentum with Jalen Hurts, and they did it while averaging 36 per game with +9 in the turnover margin. They got 10 takeaways and 1 giveaway. To that I say, Himchuk.
I love it.
How about them Cowboys?
No, money. It's been a quarter century since that phrase was used, and it actually checked out. You're doing what everybody does, and I've done it before. I did it on Thanksgiving. You get sucked in by the Cowboys, and they let you down. Just watch and run this clip back next week, because that's how certain I am that money's going to look bad.
These are all the turns that the NFC has taken, and I've taken every single one of those turns with them the whole way, and the final glory will be mine. All right, stay there. Math makes its way back into this mess we call power rankings as Cynthia Freeland's formulas figure out which teams are printing tickets to the tournament.
25 years, buddy. Enough with the how about them Cowboys.
All right, here we are back. The final quadrant, 25 through 32 is what we're looking at. And Dan, we're going to focus on that number 32 there, because the Jacksonville Jaguars were able to lock up the number 1 pick by way of losing to the Bears and the Jets winning against the Browns. So let's kind of focus on 32 and their prospects moving forward going into 2021.
Yeah, I got some blowback from Jaguars fans on Sunday nights around the NFL podcast. I was a little bit salty. I thought it stretched the bounds of decency, the whole Mike Glennon, Gardner Minshew quarterback competition. But ultimately, I get it. I mean, this is an organization that has riding a 14-game losing streak. They've lost at least 10 games, 9 of the last 10 years. They need a savior. Trevor Lawrence could be that guy. So I'm going to get out of the way and understand that this is an organization that is on the up now with Trevor Lawrence possibly on this team.
Look, and talking to our friends, Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, when it comes to scouting and anybody that's around the game of college football, they'll tell you, I mean, this is a one of one. Just the size, the strength, the mobility, the heart rate in just high stakes positions, the ability to overcome adversity, to come from behind to get wins. I mean, he has got it all. So reason to be excited there. 1, 2. Also reason to be excited about all the draft capital and salary cap money you have available to spend. Shad Khan has spent. He's been patient with his people. He's everything you'd want in an owner. And with all the trades they've made, this coming draft, they got 2 1s, 2 2s, a 3, and 2 4s. So that's going to garner attention from a top flight general manager, head coach, maybe director of football operations all rolled into one. We're hearing Urban Meyer's name being kicked around right now. I'm sure that would be the top spot or the top of the list for them. And if that happens, man, you'd feel awful good about what the Jaguars have going forward. All right, let's go power moves presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. She is the pendant of prime numbers, the premier predictive analyst in the business. It is Cynthia Freeland, NFL.com/Freeland, coming along to talk playoff percentages and how things change, Cynthia, headed into Week 17, especially for that squad that they like to still refer to as America's team and what the Cowboys are looking at.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Chiefs for a second. Just kidding. When I look at the Cowboys, obviously their win kept them in, and it made a huge, gigantic jump. They went from 9.2% chance of making the playoffs back in Week 13 to 26.5, second best in their division. Now, it's about half as good as the Washington football team. However, the difference between winning that game against the Eagles really jolted everything, but 22 percentage points up in that one. Obviously, this whole division comes down to who wins and who doesn't, and it kind of seems like who wants to win. I don't know which one does, but ultimately that's what I'm seeing from this division.
I like to break this down to everyman math and see if it really connects with Cynthia. Flip a coin 4 times. It landing once on the Cowboys side of things. Yes, that checks out, Cynthia. It is correct. The machine wins again.
Let me go ahead, Cynthia, because you can follow up on the everyday math there and what you think of Dan's methods compared to yours.
Listen, I think he's totally right, but he has to do it by 3 because it's 50% for Washington and then like 26 and 24 for the other two. It's good. It's perfect. It's perfect.
The one team that is not in it is the Eagles, yet they do play a major role in this. What does your 10,000 simulation spit out for Washington football team versus Philadelphia?
Well, given that my model right now has Alex Smith as the starter, that means that the Washington football team wins in just over 55% of simulations. So everything could change. Everything could change. But there's your coin flip, Dan Hanzus. There's that coin flip.
Look at that. There we go, Dan. You knew it was coming. Let's go to the city of the Windy City and the Bears, who have a couple different paths to get into the playoffs, and what changed in light of their dominant victory over the Jags.
Well, it actually was a little bit of help more from other teams. Like the Jets played a little bit of a spoiler for the Rams two weeks ago. So interestingly, they have a huge uptick, like more than 50% chance increase from Week 13 until now. Those wins are a key factor. And obviously it's this Bears defense that really makes the difference in this one. And the Bears offense is doing enough, especially in the run game, to have their defense really help them win games.
I mean, think back to where the Bears were 3 weeks ago when they were riding that 6-game losing streak. Yeah. If you would have told me in Week 17 they'd be a 67.8% chance of getting into the dance, I would have slapped your face. Not yours, Cynthia, but somebody's.
Okay. If I would have told you that the Bears, real quick, Cynthia, what do you have for Rams Cardinals? Because if the Cards lose and the Bears lose, the Bears are still in.
Yeah, so right now I do have, with John Wolford potentially being the starter of the Rams, it does look like there's a better chance of Arizona winning. However, Kyler Murray's status is also in question. So realistically speaking, this one is closer to a coin flip as well. I think that Rams defense has a teeny weeny edge if Kyler Murray is somehow not 100%. So it is like 51%, 49% right now in favor of the Arizona Cardinals.
So what about saying there's a chance?
Yeah, I was going to say, what about the theory, Cynthia, that everything in life is 50-50 ultimately? everything's a coin flip. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. It either happens or it doesn't.
We got to get into some existential philosophy. That's a different show, though.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. We're all living in a simulation. Thanks a lot for giving us a virus in our program, Dan. Finally, the Cleveland Browns, Cynthia. This is a win and in for the Browns.
Oh, well, look at those Jets playing spoiler yet again to another team. The interesting part about this one, if you look at that number, 56.7, that's pretty much kind of their chance to win this week. So ultimately, when you look to see what's going on with the Browns, it's kind of a bummer that they didn't have full speed last week for their chances to make the playoffs. The AFC is really strong. They have a lot of good teams top to bottom. So this is a team that if they were in the NFC, they would already make it. But look at that decrease. It did get knocked down quite significantly from week 13 until now. And really, that really came obviously from the loss to the Jets.
By my calculations, Cynthia, the Jets have played spoiler to 3 groups: the Rams, the Browns, and the happiness of Jets fans.
More existentialism. If you want that, you can go to @DanHanzus. If you want more math, you can check out NFL.com/Freelandme, @MattMoneySmith. I don't know, transcendentalism and snark. That's pretty much what you get. When we return, we go for the wild cards that are, the wild cards, the teams that nobody wants to face in the wild card round. Power Rankings presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. Let's get a look at your playoff pictures. We have got a whole lot to play for in Week 17. Now, whether or not the home teams or the teams that have the advantage on paper in those games are going to be playing with full rosters, we don't know. But you see, currently as it stands, Dolphins win in, Ravens win in, the Browns and the Colts need a little bit of help. That's the AFC and the NFC. Interesting combo here with the Bears. If the Arizona Cardinals lose and the Bears lose, the Bears are in. If the Cardinals win, both the Rams and the Cardinals are in. If the Bears win, they are in. All right, that's all out of the way. Now, Dan, we get to 3 teams. I decided to rank these, and then you're going to get to some honest assessments here that you don't want to see. And I'm going to go 3, 2, 1. Number 3 team, believe it or not, it's the Rams. And yeah, they just lost to the Jets. And yeah, they only scored a field goal against the Seahawks. I should say they only scored field goals against the Seahawks. But this is the top defense in the league. This is a team that holds your squad to 192 yards passing, 93 yards rushing. They got 49 sacks on the season. They got 21 takeaways. And they have the best player in the league in Aaron Donald that you have to account for. And on top of that, they got Jalen Ramsey on the back end. I don't want to see Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and Brandon Staley calling plays defensively if I'm in the playoffs. For the Bucs, I'm going to go number 2. the Tampa Buccaneers. And that is a team that holds you to 77 rush yards, 47 sacks, and they are third in defense. And you don't want to deal with that. You don't want to deal with Devin White. You don't want to deal with Levante David, with Shaq Barrett. That front seven is an absolute nightmare. I know the back end has let them down a little bit, but again, pass rush wins. There's a reason why you always hear you got to get a quarterback, and then you got to find somebody to get the quarterback. The Bucs have both of those things, and they're scoring 30 per game, Dan. And Tom Brady, 8 touchdowns, 0 picks in his last 3.
Yeah, I think the Bucs are super dangerous. And I also want to know, Money, like, John Wolford, is he your son? Are you his agent? Like, is he the best player on the Rams? What's going on?
How many times have we seen teams ride defense to a Super Bowl? You've seen it too many times. I don't want to deal with Aaron Donald. Finally, I'm going to finish with the Ravens. Following their COVID stretch of games there, those 2 weeks where they found themselves in this position, they have reminded us what a headache they can be. They have scored 34, 47, 40, and 27. And how about Lamar getting back to what Lamar Jackson does best? And that is a dual threat. His last 4, 94 yards rushing and a touchdown, 124 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, 35 yards and a touchdown, and 80 yards in those 4 games. It's just such a different face. It's a different team to have to prepare for, and you don't want to deal with that in the first round of the playoffs.
They just look awesome, and we love the Chiefs and we love the Bills. But the Ravens are right there, too. And I know Lamar's had his postseason struggles, but with the way they're playing right now in December, if they get in the dance, I think they have a really good chance to go all the way. It's going to be really fun in the AFC. What a playoff setup that could be.
So there's my 3-2-1. And now we get to honest assessments because we have not spoke about the Packers yet, coming off that dominant win over the Titans, and where they're at with you, clocking in here at number 3.
Yeah, I mean, they're 12-3. They're having another great season. And I just want to give some love to Davante Adams because it's amazing what this guy is doing week after week. He's such a special talent, the best wide receiver Aaron Rodgers has ever had, and that's saying something. Imagine what his numbers would look like this year if he didn't miss 3 games with that hamstring injury in September.
So the Raiders, for the second consecutive season, start 6-4, now 6-3 this year, and could finish 7-9 for the second consecutive season.
Yeah, that Dolphins loss was just stupid. It should not have happened. And I guess it was the football gods evening it up for that ridiculous win they had over the Jets. And, you know, John Gruden signed a 10-year contract, so he's not going anywhere. So the penalty for another collapse in December is going to be nothing more than bad press. But at the same time, there's going to be some pressure building now to see real progress and growth after a second straight collapse.
And finally, the Panthers, who have a chance to, they already kind of ruined somebody's postseason, potentially, if Washington can't knock off Philadelphia. But where they're at going into their final week.
No, I mean, they're not going anywhere this year, but I feel like if you're a Panthers fan, you feel pretty good about where they are. Without Christian McCaffrey for 13 of 16 games, it's going to turn out to be able to put up points and compete week after week. They have the right guy with Matt Rule there.
I snuck that in just because I want to celebrate Matt Rule one last time. We will not do it next week, so there you go. When we return, this is the dumbest list I've ever seen. Why is the Chiefs and Bills above Green Bay? A taste of Twitter tongue lashings to come.
Oh, Dylan.
Why is days, huh?
Dylan, you just...
Oh, it's our favorite part of the show, constructive criticism. Use the people get to weigh in with our man, the old Zeuser, who authors our power rankings. Can't believe this guy works for NFL Network. He has the Lions in back of the Jets. How egregious. Jets at 30. Lions at 31. Look at the record difference. And you got buddied.
Junior. Come on, Junior. Are you really going to get behind this Lions team where they are right now? And on top of it, you're going to use the word egregious when the difference is between 30 and 31. We can do better. We can do better in our analysis.
I have this great hope that was facetiousness and sarcasm. But alas, looking at the avatar, I believe, in fact, it was sincere. All right. I appreciate the Falcons moving up. If there's such a thing as quality loss, I suppose this is it. But still, 3 spots up for a loss is a little gratuitous, don't you think? How about that?
All right, well, that's very fair, James. Now, what happens in this soft underbelly of the power rankings, you're usually with a lot of teams that are just going down in flames or already packed up and thinking about the golf course. So just doing something like hanging with the defending champions, and really you should have probably beat them, that will give you that type of bump in this soft underbelly of the power rankings.
I just appreciate the self-inventory done by that Falcons fan to say, I appreciate that. However, I don't know if it was the correct thing to do. All right, again, your constructive criticism for our man Dan. Oh, I think,
I can't really go against Lonnie here. And there aren't enough Lonnies, by the way, where we are in society right now. Maybe if we had more Lonnies, we would be back on track as a world. But feels like a pretty good summation of my work, and I have no problem with it.
Well, a big thank you to all of you for one of the few highlights from 2020, your support of Power Rankings. We cannot thank you all enough. We'll be back next week with our premiere of playoff Power Rankings, and hope you'll keep it continue in 2021. Happy New Year, everyone. And keep an eye out for Dan and Kathy on that platform in Times Square. Dan pressing that plunger arm in arm with Kathy Griffin, yucking it up with Andy Cohen. Happy New Year, everybody.
Kathy and Andy don't go together anymore. The chemistry between the Zeuser and Griffin, out of control. Just stay tuned.
There you go.